Welcome to this week's edition of the Casual Shooters Podcast, your premier podcast for the casual shooter. This week, I'm bringing in a guest that competes in NRA Action pistol, Steel Challenge, and USPSA. He's also the president of his local gun club. So with that, if everybody would join me in welcoming Mr. Josh Bledsoe to the show. How you doing, Josh?
Man, David, I'm doing great. I'm thrilled to be here. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Awesome. Glad to hear you're doing well. And dressed to the nines, I must say. Making me look bad.
I'd bring only the best to the Casual Shooters Podcast.
I appreciate that.
I just got home from work and really excited to do this. So I figured,
and stay all dressed up.
My fancy side,
I feel like we're about to go to the prom.
We might. It depends on how this thing goes, but
we'll both be packing. It's all good. I was best man in a wedding once, and every single groomsman was packing a gun, including the groom himself.
Oh man, well that's one way to make sure nothing goes down, right?
Yeah, and we were in the country. Nothing was going to happen anyway, but you never know when that stray deer or bear might come out of the woods. You got to take action.
That's true.
All right. So Josh, if you would take a moment and introduce yourself.
All right. I'm Josh. As you said, I'm the president of the Escambia River Gun Club in Cantonment, Florida. It's just around Pensacola, Florida. I always say it's as close to Alabama as you can get without quite getting there. We have about 1,000 members, and I've been the president of that organization for a year. I work as a public information officer. I spend my day really dealing with a lot of marketing and asset creation, digital asset creation. Before that, I actually spent 8 years as a touring musician in a group, brass group, 5-person brass group. I've performed all over the country. And then I have been for 20 years a professional musician, like classical music, not rock or, as you can tell by the tie, I don't do the rock star thing very well, but that's, that's kind of my story. I used to go out on the road for 2-3 weeks at a time, and I'd be gone for, 250 days a year, and decided after I had my little boy that I was kind of tired of that life, wanted to spend some time at home. And really that COVID, I guess, is really where the shooting thing just exploded for me.
Okay. All right. So Josh, I don't know if you're aware of the questions you're about to be dealt, but they can be life-altering at times. All right?
Bring it on. Let's do it.
Okay. So, number 1, favorite movie?
Tombstone.
Oh, good one. Okay. I like that. That's a really good one. All right. I have learned that a lot of people don't read books, but I'm hoping you working for a school district, you read books. So what's your favorite book?
Oh yeah, I do read. My favorite book is actually a book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. It's kind of the original self-help book, and one of the parts of my life as a musician was traveling around doing peak performance and performance anxiety management clinics. And that book kind of gave me the platform on which I built my own system for managing performance anxiety. So it's one of the few books I've read over and over again. I'm not a huge fiction reader. American Gods by Neil Gaiman is like the fiction book that I love the most, but I'm not a huge fiction reader. Most of them are, how to get better up here.
So when you say to overcome performance anxiety, are you talking about public urinals or are we talking about public speaking?
I guess if you're packing a 38 short, it could be either one of those. But really, yeah, public speaking, performance, whether it could be giving a speech at a wedding or a presentation to your coworkers, but generally it's been about performing and doing your best in the moment in those periods that might be high stress.
Okay. All right. Any acting? I know you've got the music background. Any acting background?
Not really. The show that we did, that I, when I left touring, was 2 hours long. It was completely memorized, and it was a ton of choreography, and all the speeches, were scripted. I love to go off script, so not necessarily acting, but a lot of off the cuff, in the moment banter and interacting with an audience.
Okay. Here's a little TMI story. Too much information. But at one time in my past, I was a thespian. I actually performed at the National Cathedral in basically nude tights. And somebody was supposed to bring this undergarment, and they were like, oh, I couldn't find it. So someone gave me polka dotted material to put down in my groin, So, and you could see it. So here I am, National Cathedral, completely topless, nude tights, polka dotted groin. Crazy.
Oh my, yeah, that I don't have anything that could top that. So I hope you still have the nude suit, but yeah.
I do not. That was a long, long time ago in a land far, far away, a galaxy far, far away. All right, getting away from those stories. I don't know. You're not into fiction, so I don't know if you're into superheroes. If you are, who is your favorite superhero? If not, who's your favorite historical figure?
So, favorite superhero is definitely Superman.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I just think
any particular reason, or
it's like he could do it. He could do everything, and it was kind of the little boys thing that Batman's like a normal guy, and then a lot of the other superheroes were hard to buy into, but it was for some reason as a kid I could buy into like this guy from another planet who only has one weakness, and so for some reason now looking back that seems ridiculous, but yeah, definitely Superman.
Okay.
So the other reason I'm going to go ahead and give this up, I shouldn't, but because I wear glasses, my wife will always say she prefers Clark Kent. And so,
okay.
or she prefers Superman. So then I have to take the glasses off, and so it's like Clark Kent,
Superman. There you go. All right. You ever have dreams of being able to fly?
No, for having Superman as my favorite hero, I am terrified of heights. I mean, I can stand on. It could be on. This used to be a thing when I toured. They'd want to set up at the edge of the stage. We have these markers, and they get really close to the edge of the stage, and I'd be like, no way, no, we're not doing it. Back up a couple feet, otherwise I'm gonna have a wet spot in my pants if we get too close, because I'm just
again that performance anxiety. Yeah.
It's totally irrational, but I got a crazy fear of heights.
Okay. I used to dream, and actually as an adult I've had the dream where the old school metal slides, I would go head first. Well, in my dreams I'd go head first, and that little bit of an oomph at the end would allow me to take flight. So I'd fly like Superman.
Nice.
Yeah. Man, I need to have one of those tonight. That'd be a good dream. All right. Favorite gun and caliber, and they don't have to be married together.
Okay. Definitely a 1911 and 38 Super.
Okay. I get the 1911, the 38 Super. Is that you shoot open?
So I don't shoot open in USPSA. If I shoot USPSA, I shoot generally carry optics, sometimes production and limited. But I shoot open in NRA Action pistol, and it's kind of a toss up now, but there's still a hard lean toward 38 Super in action pistol open guns. And I mean, it's so much easier to reload. It's feeds better, so yeah, that's my favorite caliber.
Okay. Now, I like to tailor the last question for my guest. And since you have a musical background, you have one chance to get this right. Who is your favorite rock band?
The Who.
Oh my gosh, you are amazing. I love you. All right, now legitimately, who is?
Oh, my favorite rock band. Well, my favorite Johnny Cash
Or band, just
is
band. Ooh,
just band.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, OG.
Yeah, I love Johnny Cash. My wife can't stand him, but there's just something, I don't know. You just can't get more badass than Johnny Cash.
And you can't get more American than Johnny Cash. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Johnny Cash he's an OG. That's about all you can say. An OG.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm a fan of The Who. So, but I do love me some Johnny Cash.
Good. Good.
Okay. Now, you're president of a gun club now. You shoot 3 different forms of pistol shooting competition. But when did you first shoot a gun?
So my father was always into guns as long as I can remember. He was an auxiliary officer in the sheriff's department when I was a kid. He went to Marine officer candidate school. He ended up leaving about a week before he was supposed to graduate. Kind of a crazy story, but so he was into guns. And my earliest recollection, I was less than 10 years old. And my dad took me to the range, and we were shooting his snub-nose 38 that he carried. And then very shortly thereafter, a sawed-off double-barrel 12-gauge. And I didn't know what I was getting into, but I went home with a bruise on my shoulder. And I wouldn't shoot that gun for years. But it was really important to me, it was really important to my dad that I have a working knowledge of firearms, that I was comfortable around firearms, and that I sort of demystified the whole thing, because there were guns in the house. They were always locked up. He was very good about that. But yeah, so I was like 7 or 8 years old.
Okay. Now, did you grow up from there? Did you hunt? Did you do anything like that, or?
I did a very little hunting, some squirrel hunting and deer hunting, just like a couple times. Really, not. It didn't grab onto me. I didn't really do anything with firearms of a significant nature until I was in my early 30s. I would go occasionally, with my dad. I'd say, man, let's go to the range, when I was home from college or something. But it wasn't a regular thing. Until my early 30s. It wasn't like I didn't like firearms. I just, kind of gone and done other things. And it was the night after I got married. We go out
and celebrating on the back stoop. Pow, pow, pow.
Yeah. And we go out, and the next morning, and somebody had broken into my wife's car, and I turned my garage into a workshop studio, and so it just kind of wigged me out that there was somebody that close to me prowling around my house. And it was it was an opportunity. She had forgotten to lock the door, so it wasn't like it's not a bad neighborhood by any means. But so then I go out, and I'm like, I'm gonna get my own. Every gun I had before was my dad's, so I'm like, I'm gonna go get my gun. And I got a Taurus G2C just as a concealed carry, and I started going out to the range. And I'm like a hyper fixating kind of person. I'll grab onto something, and I have to, you know, progress and be better and better and better, and that's exactly what happened. So it started with the Taurus, and then it moved into a Canic SFX, and then I'm not going to name all the guns that I have because my wife's probably going to see this. But then it turned into, you know, and then it turned into 4 or 5 1911s, a couple double stack variants, and some race Glocks, and eventually I gave those up. And at any rate, I just got hooked. I decided to start shooting Steel Challenge, and from there it was just a waterfall.
Okay. That's like a quarter of a century gap between first shooting a gun and actually owning a gun. That's a pretty good space in there. So, okay. So we also have a G2C. So I'm down with that. So you buy your first gun so it wasn't a breaking and entering. It was just, oh, look, I found an open door. Let me see what's going on in here kind of a thing. Still illegal as all get out. But now, how do you go from, okay, let me buy this G2C because we need to make sure that so-and-so doesn't come back, and if they do, we're at least prepared, to finding these different competitions?
So I started just going to kind of the local range, you know, your average, you've got a table and you've got stalls. And I just said, okay, if I'm going to have it in the house, I want to make sure that I'm relatively accurate. And I was. And so my wife goes, hey, let's go get our concealed carry permits. So it was run by the local sheriff's office. So we go, and you know, everything's happening at like 7 yards. But they're like, hey man, you're a pretty good shot. I'm thinking, okay, I'm a pretty good, you know, kind of picking up off that. I started going to the Escambia River Gun Club because you could draw from a holster, you can do transitions. There's no, you can rapid fire. There's no restrictions of that nature, and I had heard about this thing, Steel Challenge, and I just wanted to give it a shot and see, you know, where do I stack up? How am I doing? And it looks like a lot of fun. So I went out. Are we good?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. So I go out and I shoot my first Steel Challenge match, and it was just a gas. I mean, it was like the funnest thing, the second funnest thing that I could think of, you know, at the time, being recently married. And and so, you know, I did that for probably 3 months, and I was wearing it out. I was burning down 1,500 rounds a week at the range when I wasn't on tour, because I'd go away and I'd be home for 2-3 weeks at a time. So I was just burning range ammo, and I was getting better, but not at the pace that I wanted to. And I just happened to squad this time, and there's this guy shooting open in Steel Challenge, and I'm just blown away, man. He's so fast and he's so smooth. It was beautiful. It was like a beautiful thing to watch. You know, it wasn't just fast. It was, and so I had been asking people like, hey man, I want to get some help. Like I really want to get over this hump. And everybody was kind of lukewarm about it. And I asked him, and he was like, yeah, dude, let's show up to the range next week, and I'll put an 8-inch target out at 25 yards, and you know, we'll see how you do. And I was like, 25 yards, an 8-inch target? What are you talking about? You know? So every day that week, I was out of the range trying to shoot 25 yards, and I made some progress over that week, just pushing myself. But eventually I get out there, and he's like, yeah, you know, Steel Challenge is not even really my game. I'm going, well, Jesus, if you shoot that well, what is your game? And he goes, NRA Action pistol. And so that gentleman and his brother, Jeff and Hobby, got me into Action pistol, and took me under their wing. And quite honestly, every bit of progress and every hurdle that I've been able to circumvent in the process has been because of their mentorship. And they just, you know, they're the kind of ambassadors for the sport that you wish every discipline had. And so I started doing that, and then USPSA came to our club. the Escambia River Practical Shooters came to the club, run under Donnie Chapman of Chappie Tactical, and he's like, "Dude, you got to come out and try it out." So I came out, and I'm like, "Man, this is a lot of fun. I'm getting my rear end kicked, but it's a lot of fun." So the only thing I don't shoot is IDPA, and it's not because I have anything against IDPA. It just happens to run on the same weekend as one of the action pistol matches I shoot, and you know, I just I got to get your priorities right, you know.
Now, how just as a side note, while we're there, how quickly do the matches where you are do they fill up?
Really fast. So um, we run generally in Steel Challenge about 50 competitors and 60 guns a month. We shoot 6 stages, steel, with steel, and then USPSA is generally about 60 to 62 shooters. IDPA kind of waned for a little bit, but has gotten back to 30-ish shooters. IDPA is kind of having a hard time right now, anyway. And then Action Pistol, we were supposed to have our first match last month. We had 12 shooters signed up, and it rained all day, so. The next match will be the second Saturday in May, and hoping to get some people to come out and try it out and get some folks hooked like I got hooked.
Now, when you say action pistol, we're talking NRA, correct? And is that
And
the same thing? Is that AKA Bianchi Cup or?
yeah, sort of. So NRA Action Pistol, basically owns the competition, and the Bianchi Cup is like the big flagship match that started
Okay.
in 1979. So you can shoot action pistol, but you'd sort of be doing it outlaw. And then recently, the CMP Civilian Marksmanship Program got involved, and they have acquired the Bianchi Cup. So now instead of it's the CMP Bianchi Action Pistol match. So they've gotten involved in Action Pistol, and I'm really excited to see kind of where that goes. But yeah, we generally kind of just interchange those. I call it my Bianchi gun. I don't call it my Action Pistol. I just call it my Bianchi gun. So yes, that's the shooting that it is.
Okay, we're going to come back to that. I want to, because you'll be other than Julie Golub, so you'll be the second guest on the show that's actually shot action pistol. So we'll come back to that. So you got the G2C. You had a buddy. You did a steel challenge match. You saw this guy shooting. He takes you to these other matches. What was the time frame between the going to that steel challenge and then deciding that I'm actually going to start buying gear and competing? Even if it's as a hobby, it's still serious enough that you're buying all this gear to perform better.
So I showed up to that first steel challenge match just like, I was shooting the holster that came with the Canik. The Canik TP9 SFX was my first, kind of big boy gun. But I showed up and like I had all my mags and I had everything. But it was. Immediately I went out and bought a better holster. But it was just right away. I'm kind of one of those dudes that anything is worth doing is worth overdoing. So I would say my first match was and it was October, I remember, and by November, I had a new trigger in the gun. I had a new holster. I had, everything was decked out, ready to go. And then my first action pistol match was January, following that steel challenge match. So 3 months after my first ever competition, and I had a double stack, or I still have it. It's a double stack 1911 from Rock Island Armory, and so I went out and shot in metallic division, and I had everything at the first match. I had an open holster, and I had all my mag pouches, and I had I was ready to rock. at the first match, man. There was no stopping and collecting $200. It was just open my wallet and everything was gone, and things were showing up at my door, and my wife's going, what have I gotten into? So
She's already thinking annulment. I get it. Yeah.
yeah, man. But she's been amazing. She's been fantastic. She's been really supportive, and eventually I started shooting 4 weekends a month, competing 4 weekends a month. And she did kind of finally have to put the brakes on and be like, I like you, and your kids like you, so you should probably spend some time with them. And I thought, you're right. So I've scaled that back to a couple times a month, 2-3 times a month now.
Okay. Now, you said your first match was in October. By November, you had new gun, new holster, new trigger, all that stuff. And January was your first action pistol match. Was that before USPSA or?
Oh yeah. USPSA
Okay.
didn't come for probably another 6 months after that. I had heard of it, but and I knew what it was, and I was familiar with the names and everything, but we didn't have it at our club yet, and I was not gonna drive, to go try it out on my own, solely because the rule set, the process, so much more involved than Steel Challenge. Steel Challenge, you can watch a few YouTube videos and figure out the process and the unload and show clear and make ready, and it's no big deal. But in USPSA, I felt like, man, that's kind of a little bit of a more involved game. So it would be a while, about 6 months before I shot my first USPSA match.
So then were you using your double stack Rock Island 1911 exclusively for action pistol and your Canic for Steel Challenge?
So, you know how people talk about, I can't remember what they call it, but they get one tattoo and then you just get blasted. I think they call it getting blasted. So I got one gun, and then it was just all bets were
cascade?
off, man. Oh yeah, and so I've probably got 10 guns that never see the light of day anymore. So I started. I shot 2 action pistol matches with the Rock Island, and then I bought a single stack that the guys that are my mentors, Jeff and Hobby, and Hobby, I bought a barrel, a new bushing. We got my shroud, which I'll show you an action pistol here in a little bit, and a prone pad. Got everything together, and he built my gun. And so I started shooting. It was like the 3rd match in, and I was shooting open. So it didn't take
Wow.
long to go. I was, open guns in Bianchi are just, they look more like something that comes out of Star Wars than a gun. So that was just, I was like, no way. I'm not, I want all the cool toys. I'm going to shoot open. And so I've been shooting open ever since.
So instead of jumping in the shallow end and walking to the deep end, you jumped off the diving board into the deep end.
Absolutely. My first USPSA match, I shot limited minor, and then quickly bought a X5 Legion, and so I shot, and then after that a XDM 4.5 Elite, and so I've shot production optics and limited and USPSA, and I don't know. I'm eating up with it. So it's like, hey, this month I'm going to shoot single stack, and next month I'll shoot, so I just, whatever. Revolver in Steel Challenge, shot revolver. Yeah, it's just a hodgepodge of guns. And just once the floodgates open, man, it was just, there couldn't be enough holsters and guns and magazines in the world. And now my garage that used to be a photo studio is just slam full of gun stuff. So yeah, I got it bad.
Now you have literally an arsenal for gun matches, for competition shooting. You've got guns for everything. But NRA Action pistol. So let's talk more about that. I know that the scoring is completely different. So for people, I'm actually going to share the screen while I'm chatting here, but for people that have never shot action pistol, explain how it's different from practical shooting. Until next time.
Don't be a little bitch.
Yeah.